It's almost been 2 weeks since London Biotech show, so I just wanted to share some thoughts that I had about the event. One of the most interesting things was watching how AI talks and AI conferences have slightly transitioned. In fact, actually, quite drastically transitioned, even from a year ago. I remember going to Giant Health. A lot of the talks were about use cases and potential and hurdles that we're facing. And now, actually, we've seen some of those hurdles begin to be addressed. But now, even some new issues are brought up, or some issues that we wouldn't have necessarily thought were that big a year ago, were now introduced as kind of the forefront of challenges that still need to be overcome. Howard Dauber, the Deputy Mayor for London, opened the show and, in a bit of a praise London stance, mentioned how London is in a prime position to support and to really push AI's continual development, but also deployment. So there's been about a $1.4 billion venture capital investment into the life sciences businesses. And Dorber called this a powerful affirmation of the city's continual growth and potential in AI. He noted how lab space will continue to grow. So at the moment, London has about 1 million square feet of lab space. This is going to double by the end of next year. And by 2032, over 7.2 fold bigger. So more lab space, more research into AI innovation, which really feeds this kind of global investment and grows London's own economy, but also the UK's entire economy. It's a really exciting time, particularly for the UK in AI's future. Professor Chris Johnson, the Chief Scientific Advisor in the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, then gave a talk, and he drew my attention to something I've not nearly given enough headspace to, which is cyber safety, especially after the NHS has experienced its first patient death attributed to a cyber attack on one of its main pathology service providers. Professor Chris Johnson noted that there was a positive side. The UK's cybersecurity industry is vibrant, he called it. It's now worth up to £13.2 billion, is populated by 67,000 workers, and looking at its growth, its value has skyrocketed 12% in the last year, which he called a remarkable figure. He called for better awareness, he called for proper cybersecurity experts appointed to risk and audit committees, and he called for more measurable cyber safety implementation. Thomas Balkazaz, Senior Director of Life Sciences at Microsoft, gave a really interesting talk. He stirred the conversation away from LLMs, and he made a really good point. The hype around LLMs has been quite instrumental in where AI is today. By that, I mean AI has existed since about 1950, when Turing first posed the question, can machines think? But in 2022, with the release of ChatGPT, the public's imagination was really captivated. That's when we first thought maybe artificial intelligence can actually emulate or even outperform human intelligence. But he made a good point in that LLMs can be really smart, but for healthcare, a very small fraction of the data is written. Most of it is in scans, it's in lab reports, it's in hidden things like activity monitors or smartwatches. It's mostly quantitative. A small amount of it is qualitative. That's still useful to analyze, but focusing primarily on LLMs won't work for healthcare. He said we need multimodal systems, and that's what we're seeing in research as well, is a move towards AI tools that integrate across modalities. Patient scans, lab reports, clinical notes, genetic testing, and aligning those systems is a really key step in getting AI to the next stage. Then Dr. King-Yin Lee from the MHRA gave a talk mostly about how the MHRA is adopting AI into their clinical workflows. So the regulatory process is a pain for all clinical trials. There are hundreds of pages to sift through to make sure that the information is all there, to make sure that it's all correct, to make sure that it's all safe. before a clinical trial is even carried out. This process could take hours, and therefore, what the MHRA has done has developed 2 AI tools that help them cut down the process. So they have the GMP checker, which checks for GMP things. I mean, quality assurance and traceability of like a manufacturing process, for example. They also have the GNA assessor, and GNAs are issues that are flagged when things are missing. So I'm thinking gaps in eligibility criteria, for example. And these really need to be addressed before a trial can be approved. But about half of all clinical trials receive at least one GNA before they move on. You can imagine that that really drags out the process. So with these 2 tools, King Lee mentions how it can be cut from hours to just minutes. There were loads more talks, loads more interesting speakers. These were the top ones, I think, from the day, not including the panel discussions, because the panel discussions were fascinating, but the topics that were covered there deserve their own deep dive in time to come. So stay tuned.